I get this phone call about 1 in the morning from a buddy of mine who is a pediatrician, and he was on call, and he was at a hospital just outside of our town, about 45 minutes away from his house. And he called me. He said, "Don," he goes, "somebody is in the house with Christy, and she's freaking out." And I said, "I'll be there in 2 seconds." So I run back to the bedroom. My wife is asleep. She's laying there on the bed. I said, "Shannon, get up." I said, "We've got to go." I said, "Somebody's in the house, and Christy's by herself." And so my wife jumps up and just, tries to grab something just to put on. And I reach and I grab my Glock. I kept it up on my shelf robe for protection and to keep it away from the kids. And as I reach up there to get it, I picked it up and I noticed that it was unloaded. And I remembered, I said, "Oh man, I've been cleaning my gun and I didn't reload it." And it was a Glock Model 22 40 Smith & Wesson, which I have another story about that's pretty interesting. But anyway, my typical gun that I keep up there was a Colt 45 Commander, lightweight Commander, and I had it at a gunsmith to have the slide reblued because it had gotten a little bit of it had been damaged. So anyway, I just grabbed a box of bullets. I grabbed my gun. I went running out of the house. I said, "Shannon, you drive. I'm going to load." So here's my wife driving down the road. I'm sitting in the passenger seat. I'm loading bullets as fast as I can in this magazine. Well, we're only about a half a mile from their house, so it doesn't take us any time to get there. So as we're pulling in, I'm getting the thing finished up, loaded in the clip. Of course, I only had one clip with me. So I get out of the car. Well, I knew that Ron kept guns around, and so I was really concerned as far as me surprising Christy. So I come around the side of the house and I look inside the sliding glass window, and lo and behold, I'm going to tell you, this will never leave my mind. It was just hilarious. But there's this petite, blonde, blue-eyed, just doll baby. She's sitting against the wall. She has a Smith & Wesson stainless steel 40 caliber pointed straight out, and she's looking ahead. She's back against the wall. She has her legs out. I mean, she is if I saw her, I would have run. So anyway, there she is. She's scared to death. And so I said, "Christy, it's me. And it's Don." And she said, "Oh, thank God you're here." And, she came running over, and I said, "All right." I said, "Just stand right here." And my wife got up next to her. They just kind of got on the side. And I said, "I'm going to search through the house." I said, "What happened?" And she said, "Well, I was downstairs," and they have a split level. So I was downstairs. I started hearing somebody upstairs. She goes, I heard him upstairs rummaging around." And she said, "I was freaked out." I said, "I must have left the door unlocked." And she said, "I didn't know what else to do. So I just came running up the steps." And I said, the phone was upstairs also. So she had grabbed her phone, called her husband, got the Smith out, and then she ended up where I saw her. I said, "Okay, so I'm going to start looking through the house." Well, I go through every closet, under the bed, anywhere that anyone could possibly be hiding. And so I'm looking in every position. Well, they lived in a pretty big house, so it took me a little while to do it. I felt pretty safe about the girls because they seemed to be able to take care of themselves. And then I took a big sweep, went through the outside of the house. And one of the things that I want to mention here is I had night sights on my Glock. And I'm going to tell you, I really am a big advocate for night sights because in a dark situation, and typically that's when, anytime I've ever had to pull a gun, typically is in the evening or felt my life was somewhat threatened. So anyway, here I am. I've got these night sights, and I remember thinking, man, these night sights are just awesome. And so as I go around the house, and I'm being very careful, not to expose myself, to come around corners the right way, and just trying to keep all of these things in mind. I'm an IPSC shooter, and I used to do a lot of competitions, which I'm getting ready to get back started, me and my buddy that do that. And so and especially at that time, I was really, my skills were very honed. But you know what? It doesn't matter how honed you are or how ready you are. You can always be blindsided. So, but anyway, I took a lot of care and just made sure, didn't take any chances. Just redundant, to be extremely careful. And two, there's this girl here by herself at the house, and I just want to make sure she felt safe. And obviously, after I went through the whole house and went through the yard and everything, the guy had taken off. And so, this was just a situation where being armed, being ready to defend yourself, it's just another reason why I own a gun. And but there were a couple of lessons that I learned. First is never, ever, ever get caught without your gun loaded. There's no reason. In fact, I always keep a loaded gun around, always. And so, it's just funny how these things can happen. I mean, the time I needed it, and here I was without a gun. Secondly, keep multiple guns loaded in different parts of your house. Now, we have 3 kids, and at this time we didn't, but I am extremely careful about where I leave my handguns and rifles or shotguns or whatever. And so you have to take great care. I know there are some states that you have to keep them locked up, but thank the Lord we don't live in a state like that. But anyway, multiple guns. And you say, well, I only have one gun. Well, keep it in a centralized location. Or just do what's best for you, common sense wise. But, you need to be mindful of these things, not when it's too late. So anyway, we stayed until her husband got home and felt safe and everything. But later on, it was probably a month later. I was driving by, and I just always kind of knew that Ron was out of town a lot, on this on call and at hospitals a lot of times late at night for different reasons. So I'd always kind of keep an eye on their place, and so one night I was driving by and she was downstairs. I could see her, and it was a major road. I could see her downstairs on the computer, and with the windows open, not the windows open, but with the curtains pulled back. And I saw it one time, and I just thought, oh, I can see her. And then again, like a couple of days later, I saw her again. So I called her and I said, Christy, I just want you to know. I said, I've been by your house a couple of times. I said, I can see you inside the house. And so especially for you ladies, keep it very private. It's best, for them not to know where you are at any given moment. So, and not to be paranoid, but in days like we live in, you need to be smart. As much as I love firearms, I'm a collector. I enjoy shooting. I enjoy just the investment, if nothing else. I don't think there's anything that you can invest in that'll have a better return than a nice quality firearm. But it's not about the gun. It's about having the ability to protect yourself and your family for self-defense. That's what it's about, guys. And that's what we need to stand up for. The NRA says that just the presence of a gun has stopped so many potential violent crimes happening. If for every time that somebody's actually had to use a firearm in self-defense, it's 10 to 100-fold more when somebody just brandishes or makes it visible that they are armed. So, gun, the concealed carry and just having a firearm is a huge deterrent to crime. Speaking of NRA, please, again, and I say this in all my videos, join the NRA. That is the most powerful tool that we have. GunOwnersOfAmerica.com, go to their website, and they'll give you all kind of legislative alerts and things that are going on around the country. That is a great resource. In fact, one of my viewers actually sent that comment in. Also, if you have comments about things that have happened to you, stories, please forward those to me, because I would love to put together a video. I've had many comments already where people have told me about times they've had to defend themselves. So, and then again, please do comment, at least show support. If you've enjoyed the video, also do the rating, hit that 5-star, and then if you're an anti-gunner, then just, you shouldn't have been watching this video anyway. Also subscribe. I'm going to continue to be putting out these videos. This is number 4 in the series. I have others coming up. So please be smart, be safe, keep your guns out of the hands of children, and unless you're teaching them how to shoot, which is a vital part of gun safety. And just God bless. Take care.